Hi, this is Keith with How to Build Your Own Home, and I want to talk about paint just briefly, places to save, things to consider when it comes to paint. Now I'm leaning against the wall here, and if this was flat paint, I would not be doing that. Flat paint is some of the worst paint you can put on a home. Unfortunately, it's popular right now, and I don't know why. I was doing a job a couple years ago, a very, very high-end job. Let's say it's north of $4 million. And the client wanted a flat paint. Well, the decorator chose the worst product you could ever imagine because it quote unquote looked right, but it was a terrible flat paint. And the clients saw the bucket in the house and said, that's not the product we selected, because the painter was going to try to improve on the quality, but it still had the same show. They got upset and made him repaint the whole house in really garbage paint. And so I'm not a fan of flat, although a lot of people are going that route, because it's really, really, really hard to touch up. When you need to touch up, you need to touch up the whole wall. You have to take it to an edge or take it to a corner to touch it up, and I'm not a fan of flat paint. The only place you want to use a flat paint is on the ceiling, and you typically have 3 different colors or 3 different types of paint. A flat for the ceiling, or a different color for the ceiling, a color for the walls, and then another color for your base and trim and casing and all that kind of stuff. One of my favorite is a satin, or you could go with a high gloss or semi-gloss finish. It doesn't matter. Satin's really another popular product, but it's easy to clean, and when you put your hand on it, it doesn't have that chalky feel to it. When you do get the paint, it's smooth and it's very, very easy to clean. And you'll see on some of the walls in here that it's got a nice subtle sheen to it. So your walls, typically a satin or a gloss or a semi-gloss. If you go flat, you're going to pay for it. And then your ceiling. Now, if you want to save money, you can just paint the walls and the ceiling all one color and be done. That's a way to save. A painter is going to go, great. That means I don't have to tape off the top portion, paint the wall, tape that off, and it's a lot of blocking off and taping off and whatnot just to get that transition. And then of course you're going to have a bead of caulk at the top to make it have a clean transition from the wall to the ceiling. So you could save some money by having it all painted one color. We're not going there on this house because we need that transition. We need a subtle change, so we're going to have a slightly different color up top. But think about your paint and take your time with that. Now, one thing I can say about paint is that I wanted to take you in. You can go in the shower. A lot of times, a lot of subcontractors don't want to be here when the painter's here. I was here earlier doing a little job inside there, and the fumes were pretty intense. So make sure when you get your painter here, nobody else is going to be here. There's somebody out there working, but they're outside and installing some fascia on the front door. But make sure nobody else is here when the painter's here. Nobody wants to work when those fumes are here, and it really gets in the way. Keep that in mind. Think about your paint, possibly places to save, and get something that is easy to wash off. This is Keith with How to Build Your Own Home.